You may think that you're on top and that your life is going well, and it could be, but that could stop. Jihadis want to make your life a hell. So be alert and be aware and tell the truth, just like Marmari Emmanuel. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This Week in Jihad is back and better than ever, and we are here with the great, the one, the only, the Doctor, the David, the Wood. Hello, David.
Hey, how you doing, Robert?
David, I am well, thank God. I have been traveling all over the place and running around all over this fair land, telling people about jihad and not talking about it with you. And
Hmm.
so I think, well, let's do it again tonight. We'll talk more jihad and get right back into it. Of course, as I noted in my inaugural, somewhat clumsy return to form poem, we had a reference, as you may have noted, as alert literary critics will have noted. You may have noticed that I mentioned a certain Marmari Emmanuel of the Assyrian Church of the East, a popular and well known preacher in Australia. Now, I understand that you and AP and Inspiring Philosophy have been talking about this, so why don't you fill in our viewing audience over here?
Yeah, so I wasn't familiar with Bishop Marmari Emmanuel. I know I had seen him, but he's popular. He's really popular on TikTok. He's really popular on TikTok, where people were taking his clips, and he talks about Islam quite a bit, and not just to be mean. He's presenting the theological problems with Islam's view of Jesus, and he does this regularly in his sermons, which are live streamed. I just pulled up a couple of random sermons, and he regularly includes some details about Muhammad and the Quran. Again, especially bringing out difficulties with what Islam teaches about Jesus. He points out the inconsistencies. He's basically pointing out that the extreme uniqueness of Jesus in Islam makes no sense from an Islamic perspective. It makes sense from a Christian perspective, with Jesus being the word of Allah and a spirit proceeding from Allah, and Jesus being born of a virgin, and Jesus living the most miraculous life in history, and Jesus being the Messiah, and Allah allowing Muhammad to die but not allow Jesus to die, and Jesus coming back to judge, and so on. He says this makes no sense for Jesus to be unique in all these ways. And he had apparently been threatened. I'm not sure about the contents of the threats against him, but there was a video of him saying that people had been pointing out that he has 2 weeks to live, and he laughed it off, and said he'll be happy for anyone to send him to see Jesus, and he can be pretty. He's pointed out that he had some sort of mystical vision or something like that of heaven, and he's pointing out that Muhammad wasn't there. And he's been saying some of these things in very popular live streams and podcasts and so on. And so people were ticked off at him. Then someone walked up to him, and apparently it was some sort of flip knife where the blade flips out, and it didn't pop out correctly. And so the guy ended up, a 16-year-old guy started injured his own hand. And when we hear about someone getting stabbed during a church service and so on, you know where our minds go. We know where our minds go. There are always other possibilities. It could be a crazy person. It could be some some very anti-Christian person. Could be some disgruntled member of a competing sect, or someone that just hated this guy. It could be anything. But if you had to wager, you'd be thinking jihad, especially with a guy who regularly criticizes Islam. And so anyway, the guy came in there, and apparently was yelling Allahu Akbar, and they actually questioned him while they were holding him down, and he was saying, well, if he hadn't been offending my prophet, I wouldn't have had to do this. So
Yeah,
let some it let
that's where it becomes kind of open and shut that
yeah.
this was a jihadi, because whose prophet, what prophet would anybody be offended enough to stab someone for, except for our friend Mo?
Yeah, and even after that information was out, there were Muslims running with the claim that this is actually a Jew. It was a Jew.
Yeah,
It was a Jew who's upset at Bishop Marmari for being anti-Zionist, which he isn't. They're talking about a clip where he says, "Hey, we should be showing compassion towards the Palestinians, and the Palestinians are kids who are getting hurt, and we should be really careful here and be taking this seriously." But he also has other videos talking about how he loves Jews um, and God has a plan for Jews and so on. So he seems to be pretty balanced. He seems to be pretty balanced. So the idea that this enraged Mossad so much. this guy down here in Australia, yeah, we got to go get him. Send in the 16-year-old with the broken knife.
Well, it's just part of the Jew hatred that we've seen come out so openly since October 7th. And I saw it all over Twitter the last couple of days because I reported, of course, that it was a Muslim screaming Allahu Akbar, which he was, according to eyewitness accounts. The guy who actually stopped him from stabbing Marmari Emmanuel and held him down said, yeah, he kept saying Allahu Akbar. And then, as you noted, he also repeated that he had done it because Marmari Emmanuel had insulted his prophet. He was very happy, as you can see, he's grinning here, when he was apprehended, which is in line with what we often see from Islamic jihadis that nobody ever talks about, of course, except us, that the jihadis are often happy after they commit horrific acts of violence because they believe they've pleased Allah. And so it was remarkable. There were a whole lot of Muslims on Twitter saying to me, he did not say Allahu Akbar. It was not in the video where he stabbed him. Because, of course, this was on a live stream of the Divine Liturgy in this church. And he was stabbed right in the middle of it. And many, many, many of the Muslims were saying he did not say Allahu Akbar. Whereas you can actually hear, there's a melee after he starts stabbing the bishop, and there is a great deal of talk, but you can definitely hear him saying Allahu Akbar. And of course, then there's the witness who said that he said Allahu Akbar. And then there were all these people saying, the Jews say Allahu Akbar.
I was just about to ask you that. I was about to say, hey, Robert, have you seen these people saying, well, maybe it's Jews shouting Allahu Akbar?
Yeah. Yeah. I should have been working. I'm writing a book, and I should have been working on it. But a lot of times when it's not really going so great, then I go and engage these idiots at Twitter just for some fun. And I asked like 5 or 10 people, can you give me one example of this ever happening? Of any non-Muslim ever saying Allahu Akbar in committing an act of violence, and much less doing it in order to make Islam look bad. But this was something many, many people repeated. And the whole thing, they said, was, of course, done by Mossad. Yes, to discredit Islam.
Yeah, and not the obvious. Notice every single time it's, hey, go with the least obvious interpretation of the evidence and just stay glued to that forever.
Yes.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, you got a guy, again, criticizes Islam regularly. And what's amazing is I've seen Muslims saying, well, he should have kept his mouth shut, shouldn't have been talking about Islam. Why can't he just talk about his own religion? This guy's a Syrian. These guys were actually genocided. These guys, I don't mean people were going after terrorists hiding in tunnels. And I don't mean that kind of genocide. In other words, what genocide means now. I mean actual genocide, round up everyone of that background because we're exterminating them and taking their stuff and taking their land and so on. So yeah, the Assyrians, the Armenians, guys, these Assyrians, Armenians, Jews, guys, they're actual victims of genocide out there. This guy's group is one of them. And it's just amazing that he's supposed to keep his mouth shut about Islam permanently when, I mean, he's doing it to preach the gospel to Muslims. And my goodness, the level of hypocrisy. So on the one hand, you got that Assyrians historically have been targeted by jihadis, even for complete extermination. But then again, you have if you want to say, oh, but people should just look back, not criticize other people's beliefs. Dudes, look at your prophet. He started all this. He's the one who's saying, constantly criticizing other people and saying that other people have to be violently subjugated and even exterminated in the case of Jews. And the moment you say, no, actually don't do that, why are you attacking our religion? My goodness, what a bunch of coward crybabies.
Yep. Let's see. I've been asked to mic up. Oh, I think I did something wrong. Yes, there we go. That should help. I hope. Anyway, there's a whole lot of other jihad here this week, David. Did you see this guy?
I saw a picture. I do not recall who that is.
This is Alexander Scott Mercurio, and he is from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And
hotbed of jihad.
that's right. In Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I don't know what he should have been doing.
That's
picking
that's
potatoes.
ISIS. That's ISIS I there.
Yes, Idaho.
We got ISIS K. We got ISIS ISIS I.
The Islamic State of Idaho and Salem, Oregon. ISIS. So in Idaho, in Coeur d'Alene, Alexander Scott Mercurio converted to Islam, as you can see, and he became a fan of ISIS. And he was going to, on April 7th, I believe it was.
Hey, my birthday.
Is that right? Well, he was going to celebrate David Wood's birthday by attacking all 21 churches in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. This is an ambitious young man here, David.
Yeah, not my kind of party, though.
Yeah, that's right. But he says, stop close by the church, equip the weapons, and storm the temple. Kill as many people as possible before they inevitably disperse and scatter. Then burn the temple to the ground and flee the scene. Now, Alexander Scott Mercurio evidently thinks there aren't any police in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, because he thought he was going to, or any armed people, because he was going to do this. He was going to repeat this 20 times and actually commit mass murder for Allah in all 21 of these churches. And so he got stopped, unfortunately for him, but fortunately for everybody in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Yeah, Robert, I mean, you'd think this guy'd be looking at the recent track record. It's like, okay, guy tried to attack Bishop Mari and ended up chopping his own hand up because he couldn't get the knife to work right. Like, okay, knives aren't rocket science here. I understand someone who's never used a gun tries to shoot a gun, know how to take the safety off. I understand that. If you can't get a knife to work, okay, Allah's picking the wrong. Allah's not picking the top brass here. We're not getting the best and brightest here. Then you had Iran, of course. You had Iran. We will bring Israel to its knees with our volley of our powerful missiles. And this stuff doesn't work anymore. They don't work at all. It seems like there comes a point. Shouldn't there come a point where Muslims are just like, maybe Allah is not on our side? We keep trying this stuff and looking like idiots. And when we're at all successful in an attack, like October 7th, then it's massive backlash, and all we can do about it is whine and cry for the next year. I mean, there should come a point when if you're thinking Allah is on your side to subjugate the world, and you just keep getting slapped in the face and slapped in the mouth and punched in the mouth and kicked in the gut and kicked in the balls, and there's nothing you can do that actually works, it seems like you should be rethinking your theology at some point. But that's just me.
Maybe Allah is not so all-powerful as all that. But they're still at it. They're still hoping for it in Dearborn, Michigan, where you may have heard about this rally. Now, this was a little over a week ago, but it's still in the news this week. And so, since we haven't been around, just in case anybody hasn't heard this is a photo from a rally that was on International Al-Quds Day, which was Friday, April 5th. And on Al-Quds Day, this is a commemoration of the Nakba, the catastrophe, so-called, the founding of the State of Israel. And the Ayatollah Khomeini started Al Quds Day back in the early 80s, I believe it was. And it's every year, it's just a hate Israel fest. Now it's spread worldwide, and so they had it in Dearborn, Michigan. And while this clown Tarek Bazi was speaking, the crowd starts to chant Al Maut li Amrika, Death to America. And he doesn't say, "Oh no, heavens to Betsy! This is America. We are all patriotic Americans." He doesn't say a word. He just keeps on actually attacking America and going on with his speech. So a few days ago, Abdullah Hamoud, this gentleman here, who is the mayor of Dearborn, he said, "Dearborn is full of patriotic Americans who love this country." What do you think,
Yeah.
David? You've been in Dearborn.
Yeah, I've been in Dearborn. Hey, isn't that where they locked me up because I was standing there holding a camera while my friend was answering questions from some teenager? They locked us up. Yes, I don't know where that guy was recording. I know the Dearborn jail pretty well. Me and the Dearborn jail are like this, son. Of course, once it went up to court outside of Dearborn, they had to they got sued and they had to pay some money for what they did. But yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, it you can't say we haven't been warning them. We've been telling them. We were telling them back, and we were telling them in like 2008, 2009, guys, you need to pay attention to what's going on in Dearborn because these guys are. And we're told what? No, they're the most patriotic Muslims in the world. You even remember they made that show, All American Muslim.
Oh yeah,
They made a
yeah.
TV
I'd
show
forgotten about
about
that.
Muslims in Dearborn, all American Muslim. These are the biggest patriots in the world. And all of a sudden, here we are a few years later. Death to America! Death to America! Death to America! I mean, what? What's going on here? Who could have foreseen this? I don't know. Anyone?
And you know what's amazing is Abdullah Hamoud, the mayor of Dearborn, did not say, "I'm going to start an investigation immediately into subversive activity in Dearborn and root out these people who are working for death to America." He didn't say anything like that. He just said, "We're all supposed to believe now that Dearborn is full of patriotic wavers of the stars and stripes." And
Yeah.
yeah.
If he has any follow up, it'll be warnings about the dangers of Islamophobia and that he's starting a new anti-Islamophobia task force.
That's right, David. You know, I had forgotten, but just a few weeks ago, you may recall, there was a big expose in the Wall Street Journal that was called Dearborn, America's Jihad Capital. And it was all
Yeah.
about how
I
it was written by
forgot about it.
Stephen Stalinsky of the Middle East Media Research Institute, MEMRI. And he had all kinds of evidence of all this collaboration with groups that are linked to terrorism, of open praise of Hamas and Hezbollah, all kinds of things going on. And what did Abdullah Hamoud do in response? He said, "I'm increasing police patrols around mosques because of this terrible Islamophobia in the Wall Street Journal." He did not say, "Oh, people think we're America's jihad capital. I'm going to start rooting out jihad activity in Dearborn." He never said anything like that.
Interesting. And guys, this has been going on for a while. I'll go ahead and point it out again here. I didn't hear this from the man, Nabil and Paul, who were locked up in the jail with me. They heard it from the guy who was taking our mugshots. So we had our mugshots taken separately. Like Nabil goes in there, then they bring me in there after that. Then they bring Paul in there. They get the mugshots, and anyway, the next morning, Nabil and Paul, the guy told Nabil and Paul separately the same thing when they were pointing out, hey, what's going on here in the city where we're having a peaceful conversation on a public street with some Muslims who approached us and started asking us questions. It was all friendly, and then you guys show up and lock us up and say it's a breach of peace. What's going on here? Seems like Sharia. Seems like a little like Sharia. And the guy who was taking the mug shots told Nabil and Paul separately. He said, "Hey, you don't have to tell me. I've been on the crime scene where a teenage girl gets her her head's chopped off because she went out wearing the wrong thing, and we don't hear a word about it. It never makes it to the media, so don't tell me." And so this is the kind of stuff that's going on in Dearborn, Michigan. And shame on us for being so Islamophobic that we point out obvious problems. But no, so we'll just have to keep quiet about the whole death to America thing, because there's no way, ladies and gentlemen, there's no way that this could ever lead to anything bad in the future.
That's right. And meanwhile, our elected officials are on it. Uh, let's see, where is she? There she is. Rashida Tlaib, the famed Muslim congresswoman from Michigan. She said she was asked by a Fox reporter to condemn the Death to America chants in Dearborn. And she said, I don't talk to Fox News, you're all racists and all that. And so she never did get around to condemning the Death to America chants. The wrong people were asking her, nasty right-wing people. And so she didn't feel incumbent upon her to answer. Meanwhile, we have this gentleman. This guy, David, this guy's Chris Halali from the Party of Communists, USA. And you can see that he's wearing a Palestinian Jihad scarf there. And he made a speech not too long ago where he said a very interesting thing in terms of the leftist Islamic alliance. He said that celebrating 100 years since the passing of Comrade Vladimir Lenin is an important milestone. It's an opportunity for us to regroup, rethink, criticize, and self-criticize, and to rebuild and keep the struggle going. And so a century under the banner of Lenin, let me say that again, I'm sorry. And so after a century under the banner of Lenin, I believe that the next century will be under that banner, and that banner is not only the symbol of Palestine, it is the symbol of all oppressed people. So he's saying we've been fighting as Leninists for the last century, and now we're going to start fighting as Palestinians and as defenders of the allegedly oppressed Palestinians. And I thought, well, that's interesting in light of the leftist Islamic alliance. What usually happens to the left in the Islamic alliance there, David?
Yeah, they eventually usually get crushed.
Indeed. You
Eaten up.
remember the Ayatollah Khomeini, and he was allying with the Tudeh party in Iran, the communists there. They thought they'd have a part in his government, and instead he threw them all in prison.
Yeah, it's. I mean, just notice the similar method. So you had Marxists in the U.S. realize that they could have a kind of shield for their Marxist intentions if they call their group Black Lives Matter. They were an openly Marxist group. But if we portray ourselves as just defending the victims here and not people who want a Marxist takeover of the country, then people can't criticize us, right? Because if you just walk up to people saying, hey, we're a bunch of Marxists and we're defending Marxism, they're like, get away from here. But if you go out there and you say, hey, I'm defending this oppressed group, then oh, we can't criticize. They can't criticize the Marxists anymore because now they have a shield. And so, yeah, why wouldn't you? If you're a Marxist, why wouldn't you do that with the Palestinian cause now? Just say you're all about defending Palestinians.
Indeed. But tell you, David, this is getting out of hand here. Did you see this? Let me find her. Oh, I know I've got her here. Did you see this lady?
Oh, yeah.
That is Riddhi Patel, who is not a Muslim, but a Hindu, but she's far to the left, and she showed up
Oh, yeah.
at the city council meeting in Bakersfield, California. And in Bakersfield, she said that the Bakersfield City Council had to endorse the ceasefire in Israel, that is, allowing Hamas to survive. And she also was objecting to the fact that there were metal detectors at the city council meeting. And in order to register her objection to the metal detectors at the city council meeting, she said, you guys want to criminalize us with metal detectors, we'll see you at your house. We'll murder you.
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is she appeared before that, and she actually escalated, because her earlier comments were, I hope you guys die, or I hope you guys get killed, or something like that. That's not actually probably a crime to say, I hope you die or something like that. That's not a specific threat. But she got away with that and there were no problems. So the next time she got up, she said, yeah, we'll see you at your house. We're going to kill you all. And then she got 18 felony charges. Eight of them are like, uh, one part of them is trying to intimidate a public official, and the other were terrorism charges, making terrorist threats. And so, my goodness, I mean, this was California, right?
Yeah, Bakersfield,
Oh,
California.
okay, this is California, so they'll probably give her some sort of plea deal where she spends a year in prison and gets like a 5-year sentence. But I mean, if she were actually tried and convicted of all the, which she could be if they wanted to, I'm just saying because it's California, they probably won't go after her as hard as they can, and they'll want to cut her a deal because
Indeed.
they don't want to enrage other people, and then there's all sorts of free this woman protests and so on. So they'll probably give her some sort of deal. She'll probably spend 6 months or a year or something like that locked up. But I mean, my goodness, multiple counts of making terrorist threats against public officials. If they wanted to throw the book at her, she'd be spending life in prison, and I would lose minutes of sleep over that, Robert. Minutes.
And indeed, she was weeping after she was so hostile and so out there at the
Tough.
meeting.
Yeah,
She
she was
was
tough.
weeping pathetically when she was arrested and pleading and so on. And I think what's really remarkable about this is the fact that she is a Hindu. And we've covered so many stories here, and there's so many others about the persecution of Hindus by Muslims
Hmm.
in India itself, as well as in Bangladesh and Pakistan. And yet, here you have somebody who doesn't probably even realize that
Hmm.
when she's defending the Palestinians and Hamas, she's really fronting for the same jihad that threatens her own people in India.
Yeah, and really I mean, just online and with people in the chat and on Twitter and so on. Usually, when I'm hearing from people from India, it's people who say they stand with Israel on this issue because they've experienced it. They've
Yes.
experienced jihad over there. And you can say, "Hey, I disagree with this," or I disagree with Israel about that. I disagree with Israel about this. I disagree with how you did this." But when they're just basically taking a side, it's we are not on the side of the terrorists because we've been through that too many times and we understand what that is. And I mean, they're kind of parallels between like Hindus and Jews a bit in that they're not big on proselytizing and so on. They're not trying to convert the world, which gives them a kind of disadvantage when other groups that are trying to proselytize are coming at them. And so, yeah, there's some. Yeah, I think they've got some. I think they understand each other a bit, but not this girl.
Indeed. All right, let me ask you about this. Have you seen this young lady?
Don't recall.
This is Rueda Adan, and she actually, I believe, yes, she is passed on to the great beyond. She was 15 years old, and on August 6th, 2021, she was racing with her friends in a section of East London called Barking, which I think, well, they're the English go again with these names. But anyway, she's in Barking, East London, and is rented go karts from a place called Capital Karts, and she's racing with her friends. Her hijab is hanging out of her helmet and gets caught up in the go kart, and she was strangled to death by her own hijab. Terrible
Hmm.
accident, and we send condolences to the family. But the point of my bringing this up to you, David, right now is that Capital Karts, the go kart company in Barking, has been ordered to pay £120,000 or $150,000 to this woman's family because her hijab was caught up in the workings of the go kart and she was killed.
Now, Robert, this reminds me of some other stories from the past. You remember these? It was here in the U.S. and there was I forget what it was, a Six Flags or something like that, but some amusement park, and they wouldn't let a Muslim girl. There was like a Muslim. They were having a Muslim day, and they wouldn't let a Muslim girl on the roller coaster with her hijab on because they
Hmm.
said on your head because it can get caught. It could come unraveled with moving around, and it gets caught on something and chokes you or rips your head off. So
That's
no.
right.
And of course, they were blasted relentlessly in the media for being Islamophobic and for discriminating against this girl for her Muslim beliefs, not just saying, "Hey, dangerous things can happen if you're flying around on a roller coaster." And interestingly, that girl who became the poster girl for anti-Islamophobia was eventually honor killed by her Muslim dad.
Oh
And
my
people
goodness.
heard people heard almost nothing about it. But think about this: you've got the amusement park. They're trying to keep her safe, and the penalty for trying to keep her safe and not getting her head ripped off is they're blasted as Islamophobes. Meanwhile, she was actually in much more danger from her dad, who killed her. And here we have a different place, a different, completely different place. They let the girl wear her hijab because they don't want to be called Islamophobe. They're terrified. We don't want to be called
Hmm.
Islamophobes. Let them get away with it. We understand these guys are going to jump all over us if we let her get. And of course, uh, nope, she dies, and then they get sued. Look at what Islam does. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you do. If you say you can't do that here, that's dangerous. You're the bad guy. If you say, okay, I don't want to be called names. I don't want to be called racist. I don't want to be called a bigot. I don't want to be called an Islamophobe. So you do it how you want to do it. Then you get sued, and you're evil for letting this girl die.
Yep, that's about the size of it right there. And it is incredibly inconsistent. I remember that the Hamas-linked Council on American Islamic Relations fought to get the rules changed so that Muslim girls could wear hijabs on the roller coasters, and they didn't care about the safety issue. And probably we see now why they didn't care about the safety issue, because even when a girl is killed, because of the lack of basic safety precautions, they still collect, and they're still able to blame the manufacturers. It's incredible. Okay, you may remember this fellow on the left. That is Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the former president of Iran.
Loser.
Yeah, you remember him.
Yeah, never liked him. Never cared for him much.
I don't know why not. He was such a charmer. Uh, but I got to find the story here. I had it, but I went off it. Unfortunately, I got to be. I need a secretary, David. I tell you. Um, anyway, I can't find it, but I can work from memory. The guy on the right is his exorcist
You mean like on bicycles or something?
on bicycles and spitting pea soup and heads turning around. The whole 9 yards. That is Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's exorcist. I can't find the story, so I can't get his name, but it was a story out of Iran the last week. Oh, there it is. That guy is Abbas Amirafar, and Abbas Amirafar was Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's exorcist, and he says that he likes Mahmoud Ahmadinejad very much, and he thought that he was a fine president, a good president for Iran, and he had the job of protecting him from evil spirits. But he
Nice.
says that Ahmadinejad wants to come back as president of Iran now, and Amirafar does not support him. He says that he's changed and that he now supports dancers and homosexuals.
Hmm.
And as a result, the exorcist has withdrawn his support.
Hmm.
But I just thought, David, isn't that curious? I mean, I've never heard of a world leader having a personal exorcist before.
Well, I mean, it explains why things are going so swimmingly well for him this entire time, and his country, and his country. I mean, you can see they
You mean
turned
you
that
gotta
place into
wonder?
a.
It's an interesting thing because Islam is supposed to be the final religion and the only true religion, and so on. So why would evil spirits have any sway over Mahmoud Ahmadinejad to start with? And you
Well,
got to
I mean,
wonder.
come on, these things could take out Muhammad, according to Sahih Bukhari. You get a hair from his hairbrush, and he'd take him out of commission for 6 months to 2 years. He'd be all messed up, having delusional thoughts and false beliefs, Robert. So who are you to say if the mighty Muhammad was a victim of black magic and magic spells and so on? Why shouldn't Mahmoud be on his game? Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
they used to in Dearborn, and when I used to go to Dearborn, they had like big billboards for the Gin
Oh
Busters,
yeah.
the Gin Busters hotline. You call up, say hello, hello. I got a big one here. Yeah, can we get the Gin Busters over here? Well, they didn't show up with like proton packs and stuff like that, like the Ghostbusters. They just came in and did their little rituals and stuff to exorcise the demons.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of exercising the demons, I got a story out of Nigeria for you. Nigeria, of course, is beset by jihad activity. We've covered it many
Hmm.
times here.
Worst place in
And
the world right now.
yeah, absolutely. And there are two primary jihad groups there, three actually, because there are the Fulani, who are always called herdsmen. They're a tribe of herdsmen in Nigeria but they're actually Islamic jihadis who are trying to displace the Christians from Nigeria and establish the caliphate and so on. But there are also two factions of Boko Haram, which means books are forbidden. That is, Western education is forbidden. Boko Haram split a few years back because part of them, part of the group joined ISIS, and is now the Islamic State West Africa Province, ISWAP, whereas the other half did not join the Islamic State and is just a freelance jihad group. Anyway, the point is that over the last few years, the Nigerian government has been offering sweetheart deals to these guys if they repent. And a lot of Boko Haram jihadis have gone to the government and said, yeah, I'm tired of this jihad and I realize it's all misunderstanding Islam. And so I will take your sweetheart deal. And a lot of them have actually joined the Nigerian army after
Mm.
being deprogrammed. What do they call it? De-radicalized.
De-radicalized. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And
Hmm.
so what we have out of Nigeria this week is a story of Private Muhammad Adamu. And he was a former Boko Haram member who was de radicalized, and he joined the 82nd Airborne and Amphibious Division of the Nigerian Army, which I'm sure is a fearsome force. And he has been charged because he stabbed a woman in the barracks in Enugu, Nigeria. He actually slit her throat in the barracks in Nigeria. Why do you think he slit her throat in the first place? Why the throat, David?
I don't know. Who was she? Because you have Strike at Their Necks verses.
Indeed. We don't know who she was. The authorities have refused to comment, and there does seem to be reports that they were lovers, but nothing is certain. But in any case, if they were indeed romantically involved and then had some trouble, what might have been the fallout? I understand we're just speculating here.
Oh, could be all kinds of things. Some of these guys just flip out if they get disrespected by a woman. They can't, that's why they throw acid in women's faces and so on. Or if he just thinks she's out of line and she's a bad Muslim, he can put her in the apostate category or the something like that and say, I have to kill you as an apostate or a heretic or something. So, yeah, there are any number of reasons that a man might go for a woman's throat in Islam.
Indeed. And so, in any case, it does make me wonder if you had, if the repentance was really successful. I mean, you can take the jihadi out of Boko Haram, but can you really take the Boko Haram out of the jihadi? I don't know.
And I mean, think about this. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't these guys take advantage of this idiotic system, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
what are the de-radicalization programs? We've heard about Muslims before, just saying that these things are basically a joke. It's what do they do? They, hey, look, right here in the Quran. Uh, No compulsion in religion. See, says it right there. Says it right. No compulsion in religion. Oh, it's over here. Hey, if anyone killed a man, it's as if he's killed all mankind. See, that's the real message of the Quran. Don't read anything that came after that, but that's good. And they go, oh, our hearts have melted. Now we're all about peace and tolerance. What's crazy, bro? It's like all these nations are realizing they've got a problem with jihad, and so what do? They try to they try to pretend that Islam is just something that it's not. They try to pretend that these things aren't taught in Islam, which is you're never going to be successful doing that. Yeah, you might find an idiot who doesn't know anything the Quran says and tell him, oh, it says right there, no compulsion in religion. He'll go, oh, that's what it says. Okay, I'll believe that then. You might have idiots that this actually works with. On the whole, it's never going to be successful. You know what can be successful? Actually exposing Muhammad and the foundations of Islam and getting people to have some doubts about whether they want to go out and die for this because they're not sure that it's true, not sure that this guy's a prophet. Well, what happens when we actually try to do that? We're the bad guys. We're trying to save all these people. We're the bad guys.
I really should put the book together, you know? I mean, after all, I got the critical Quran. And so I could just take 256, there's no compulsion in religion, and 532, if you kill one person, it's as if you've killed all mankind. Put that on page one, and then have like 300 blank pages, and put it out. The Quran, the moderate Quran, the Quran of peace.
There you go. There you have
You know,
it.
you
Then
see
you have
those
then you'd
books.
have the moderate. You've had the moderate Quran and the critical Quran. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
That's all you need to do.
I'll have to ask the publisher if he's interested. Anyway, David, a lot of stories still to go. Let me see here. I know I have a picture. It's a very important picture. That, sir, is a ham sandwich.
That I can confirm.
And that is the very ham sandwich, the self same ham sandwich that a Spanish woman who's rather active on Twitter, Ada Yuch, she was eating this ham sandwich on a bus in Spain when a gentleman from Morocco told her that she should stop eating the ham sandwich, as tasty as it looks, because it was Ramadan at the time. And no, I'm sorry, this is not a Ramadan story. It's post-Ramadan story. He just objected because it was pork, and so
Wait,
Islam forbids pork.
was this woman a Muslim?
No, no, just a
Wait,
random
wait.
non-Muslim on a
So this
bus.
is you're saying a Muslim objected to a non-Muslim not following Islamic dietary restrictions.
You are correct, sir.
Can you imagine this? You're sitting here with your ham sandwich, right? So we got a ham sandwich. You're sitting there eating it. That's a good ham sandwich right there. Some guy comes along and says, "Hey, in my religion, you're not allowed to do that. Therefore, you can't do that." What, like, where do they get this idea that? Isn't it weird? It's like Jews. You got Orthodox Jews, and the rules for Jews are the rules for Jews. And you've got Christians, and the rules for Christians are for Christians. And you've got Hindus, and the rules for Hindus are for Hindus. You got Islam, and everyone has to follow the ramblings of our illiterate 7th century Arabian caravan robber. Y'all have to follow him. We don't believe in him. We'll flip out if you don't.
Yep, that's it, man. And so I don't know what happened to the ham sandwich. I hope that Ada Yuch went ahead and ate it, but the
Now they got me
so
wanting to go there. Now they got me wanting to go over there.
go to Spain and eat a ham sandwich on a
Ride
bus.
every bus. Ride the same bus, so I run into the same guy, and I'm sitting down there with a big old plate of ribs, Robert. A big old plate of ribs. Anyway.
Yep, yep, some bacon. All right, let's see. Is this it? Yeah, this is the Iranian parliament, the Majlis, after they sent all those rockets over to Israel. They were in the parliament. You can see they're shaking their fists and screaming, "Death to America, death to Israel." But also, and I thought this was interesting, they were also shouting, "Victory to the warriors of Islam." Let's see what they say. Congratulations to the warriors of Islam.
Which
Now,
ones?
the ones who were fighting against Israel.
Wait, the ones who are hiding in tunnels like babies?
That's the ones.
The ones who are hiding in tunnels with Farfor like rats?
Yeah, but
Wait,
I
wait, wait,
was
wait, wait. Just to be clear, the guys who jump across the border, rape and kill some people, take some hostages, run and hide among civilians and under schools and around hospitals and stuff, and they hide while civilians get caught in the crossfire, and that's what they do it because that's what they want. These are the super strong guys that we're all supposed to respect.
that is correct. You're right. But the other thing is the warriors of Islam. When have you heard anybody say this conflict had anything to do with Islam?
Yeah, I thought it was all about land dispute, not
Exactly.
about Islam.
It's constantly characterized as being a political and not in the slightest degree a religious conflict in the Western media. And yet, whenever the jihadis speak about it, they speak about it in terms of Islam.
Strange.
Yeah,
And
you know.
in fact, you see that way more. It's been pointed out. This happens way more when you start looking at what guys are saying in Arabic. The leaders and speakers are saying in Arabic when they're talking to Western audiences. We don't have a problem with Jews. It's just the Zionists. And then you see their speeches that are in Arabic, and we will slaughter the Jews. We will end the Jews. The Jews will be destroyed. Death to the Jews.
That's it.
If I didn't know better, which I don't, I might think they change up their message to appeal to different audiences.
Inconceivable. Anyway, David, another story out of this week is in the Gaza Ministry of Health. And the Gaza Ministry of Health is the sole and only source for the number of casualties that we've heard about coming out of Gaza. And so we often hear leftists, protesters, and various politicians and so on saying how terrible it is that 30,000 civilians have been killed by the Israelis in Gaza. And yet the only source for that is the Gaza Health Ministry, which is run by Hamas. But this week, the Gaza Health Ministry, after saying they had 33,091 Palestinian deaths, they admitted that they had been exaggerating and that it was really 20,000. The 12,263 of them were fake. And so that among the 20,000 were, about 12,000 jihadis. And so actually what you have is a number of civilians killed that compares quite favorably to the percentage of civilians killed in Iraq and Afghanistan while the Americans were there. And yet this is supposed to be a genocide.
Yeah, there were already like war historians and so on who pointed out that the kind of war that Israel's fighting right now, urban warfare, people hiding among civilians, people hiding in civilian areas and stuff like that, people running out and fighting and then running back and hiding among civilians. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare because you're a soldier. You have to go look for some guy. People are popping out at you. If someone pops out and he's dressed like a civilian, you don't know if that's a terrorist who just disguised himself as a civilian. So it's a nightmare situation. And people were putting even according to the numbers that Hamas was giving, Israel was doing extremely well. Like actual war. You have the people screaming on college campuses and so on, but people actually study war. They're like, these are shockingly amazing numbers for the kind of war that Israel's fighting here. And then if you find out that it's actually better than that they're actually that numbers have been exaggerated or something, that's crazy. And what's interesting, Robert, is you've got the most insane numbers of all time came from Mohammed Hijab. He said Israel had 100 to 1. 100 to 1. He said this on Piers Morgan repeatedly. Israel has 100 to 1 civilian to combatant ratio.
I hope somebody told him that was a lie.
No, they didn't know it because he does what he always does. He says, "Oh, it's on this article." When we actually went to the article, it was about the Hamas leaders. It's 100 to 1 ratio of Hamas commanders to civilians, not to Hamas general fighters. He was acting like only a few dozen Hamas terrorists had been killed. It was a few dozen Hamas commanders that had been killed. And so he's either so stupid that he can't and that was in the headline, Robert. He's basing all this on a headline that said Hamas commanders, and he took that as any Hamas fighters, and came up with this 100-to-1 ratio. But yeah, it wasn't until no, he got away with it during the show. We looked it up afterwards. Like either this guy can't understand a headline, or he did understand it and he's just a liar.
Well,
With the job, you just can't tell. Is he so
yeah,
stupid that he doesn't understand a headline, or is he actually just lying about it? Either one would be entirely believable.
I think it's incredible how these guys lie. And I got another one for you. Speaking of lies out of Gaza, uh, this is actually something that was repeated by the UN Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights, and they reported Mr. Mustafa Ayash, the founder and director of the Gaza Now news agency, was killed along with at least 8 members of his family, including children, in an apparent airstrike on his house. Okay, terrible, right? And this was included in a report about how Israel was killing innocent people and journalists. Because here's this guy from Gaza Now news agency. Okay, so that was supposed to be on November 22nd. And you can still find it to this day, at this moment, on the UN website, that Israel killed Mustafa Ayash. However, David, on March 27th, the United States Treasury Department issued sanctions on people who were helping Hamas. And one of them was Mustafa Ayash, founder and director of the Gaza Now news agency. And the United States Treasury Department seemed to think that on March 27th, he was alive, even though he had been declared killed on November 22nd. Not only that, but Gaza Now news agency reported on the day after that the U.S. put the sanctions that Mustafa Ayash had been arrested. And he ain't dead. But he's still listed as killed by Israel on the UN website.
Well, only one explanation here. It's a miracle. The man is clearly raised by Allah to fight another day.
That's it. That must be it. What other
Him,
explanation
him
could there be?
yeah, him and Farfor back from the dead.
Yes. Let's see. This is a guy. I couldn't find his name. And I went to the Islamic Center of New Haven's Facebook page and went through months and months of their posts. And I never saw anybody name this guy, but I saw him preaching many times, although this particular sermon from last November, only recently come to light, has been making the rounds, and that they took it down from the Islamic Center of New Haven Facebook page. But this is a very a tall, rangy Islamic preacher. If anybody knows his name,
His
put it in the,
name, his name is His name is Sheikh Durka Muhammad Jihad Allah. Everyone knows
that's
that.
it. That's it. I should have known. Anyway, this guy preaching in his now taken down sermon from November that just surfaced a couple days ago, actually, he is preaching that the Jews have lowered their standards, that they used to kill prophets, but now they're just killing ordinary people, ordinary humans. But I thought what was most notable about this guy was that he says that we Muslims recite the first chapter of the Quran, the Fatiha, 17 times a day in order to be reminded of Allah's anger against the Jews. Now, the Fatiha, the opening, the first chapter of the Quran, it ends up, guide us to the straight path, not the path of those who have earned your anger, or the path of those who've gone astray. And I have it in the Critical Quran, and have written about it and spoken about it for many years, that it's common Islamic tradition, commentary on the Quran, that the people who've earned Allah's anger are the Jews, and the people who've gone astray are the Christians. And many Islamic apologists.
That's all over their commentaries. It's
Yeah,
all over,
but
all over the place in their commentaries.
they have denied it and said you're just a terrible Islamophobe, and so on and so on. And yet here's this guy, and he just says it straight out.
Yeah,
This,
because yeah, because everyone knows it. You know,
yes,
it's crazy in these a lot of these interfaith events where a church will host and have Muslim speakers and stuff. The Muslims will say, "Hey, why don't we have this united prayer? We'll show you how we pray," and they run them through Surat al-Fatiha, and they have Christians
yep,
praying, not realizing that they're actually cursing themselves and saying, "Don't make us like Christians."
indeed, yeah, they have no idea. They just did that in, I believe, the New York State House not long ago. But anyway, I have a question in the chat that I wanted to get. Characteristically, I can't find it now, but somebody asked, I thought they only prayed 5 times a day. And that is absolutely
Yeah,
true.
yeah, they recite things multiple times in their prayers.
Yes. So they recite the Fatiha. If you go to the 5 prayers a day, they will recite the first chapter of the Quran, the Fatiha, 17 times in the course of those 5 daily prayers. It's kind of like the Lord's Prayer for Muslims, but it's a little bit uglier because it's got these sort of blanket criticisms of Jews and Christians built into it. Okay, let's see. We have Ahmed Alid in Britain, and he was on trial this past week because he's an asylum seeker from Morocco. That's not why he was on trial. He stabbed a 70-year-old man on the street in revenge for the alleged Israeli killing of children in Gaza. And so he is on trial now for stabbing the 70-year-old. But I'm not sure. What do you think, David? How does that fix everything in Gaza? Are they still fighting there?
Yeah, it's kind of yeah, it's kind of stupid. I mean, it's messed up. You start off and hey, stab this old guy, and I was thinking, I don't know, some old people annoy me at the grocery store, so I can kind of get it. And you're like, no, I'm doing it for Gaza. I'm like, well, that doesn't even make sense, dude. I was like, I understood you. I'm not gonna keep in mind, I'm not gonna do it. I'm just saying they're old people are annoying. So if someone actually snapped, I would kind of understand that. So I was kind of like, oh, I get it. Up until I'm doing it for Gaza. It's like, wait, what? Now you're making 0 sense, dude. You're making 0 sense. But this is extreme. I mean, Robert. I mean, this is so pathetic. It's so insanely pathetic. It's we're all cheering for October 7th. Look what we've done. We're so strong. And then we all know what's happening. We all know they're going to be running and screaming and crying a few days later, which they were. And here we are months later, and they're running around, and they really thought that, well, if we get a bunch of dumb college students and a bunch of Marxist groups and a bunch of LGBTQ and Queers for Palestine, all those guys all marching together, well, Israel's really not going to go after Hamas then. Nope, Israel keeps going after Hamas, and they're so insane and desperate. What do they do now? Oh, we're setting ourselves on fire, and we're stabbing old people to death. It's like, wow, really. Wow, you're really changing my mind, guys. You're really changing my mind, making me think you guys are the sane ones and that we shouldn't, we shouldn't be worried about you, Paul.
Speaking of dumb college students, oh, that's not them. They were dumb college students earlier, but they're older now. Hang on. Here it is. These guys were in New York City, and they burned an American flag while chanting "Death to America." And I think that the Dearborn "Death to America" chant has become a kind of social contagion. And now we're going to see it from a lot of pro-Hamas protesters all over the place in the United States.
And I have to say, glad for it. You want them to show their true colors. These where, hey, we're not against Jews. We just have a problem with Zionists. We're just concerned with that particular. We're just concerned with the treatment of Palestinians and so on. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're lying. That is a cover. You have a much more disgusting agenda than that. You're using that to dupe morons. So it's actually good when their true colors come out.
Indeed. All right, let's see. There's quite a lot more that we did not get to. I'll give you some real quick. There was an ISIS cell, a Jihad cell rather, in Germany. 2 boys and 4 girls, David, between the ages of 13 and 16. Oh, they were ISIS. I'm sorry, but they were teenagers.
ISIS. The ISIS-Jungen.
Yes, ISIS-Jungen, ja. Und they were planning to hit churches, bars, a synagogue, and a police station in North Rhine-Westphalia. Once again, I think, like that kid in Idaho, Alexander Scott Mercurio, they're biting off a little more than they can chew. They think that they're going to be able to just do these multiple attacks on multiple sites without anybody trying to stop them. And I think
Yeah,
that's a
and
little premature.
you can get away with more at certain times, mainly when people aren't paying attention, when people's guard is down. That's actually what happened to Israel on October 7th.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people weren't even showing up because they were thought, hey, it's a holiday, nothing's going on. We've got our fencing, we've got our well, no one's going to be able to do anything to us. And then nope, they went over, under, and through those fences. But yeah, the world is basically on pretty high alert right now. Like all these different countries are on pretty high alert.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a group, if you have three or four or five or six people in your group, much more difficult than if you're just some sort of lone jihadi. Or it's if you like very experienced jihadis understand, like the ones who attacked in Russia. They have they understand. They understand. Hey, they understand how to keep their mouths shut and not blurt things out on social media, not how to leak things to friends, and not how to run around going, "Hey, anyone know where I can get a bomb? Huh? Come on." They understand that, but the young people, no, they're stupid and they get caught.
Yes, indeed. And we can be glad of it. Anyway,
Hmm.
some people asked during the course of the hour here why there are no super chats, and that is because I am such a bad guy for opposing jihad violence that I'm demonetized on YouTube. And so please remember we do have expenses in this, and it actually is getting pretty tight. So if you can support us at jihadwatch.org with a donation or at Patreon, that would be gratefully received.
You got your
Or
link. You got the link in the description box.
yeah, the links are there for Jihad Watch and Patreon, and also for the books, The History of Jihad, The Critical Quran, The Palestinian Delusion.
Yeah, guys, and there's stuff that you can do to support Robert and his right. And guys, keep in mind he's been doing this for decades now. He's one of the originals that was trying to warn people, and he's one of the original people who was catching all the fire for years about him spreading bigotry and Islamophobia by just telling people what was in the sources. So he's been doing this a really long time, been catching endless heat. So lots of ways you can support Robert. Free ways when you see him posting articles and so on Jihad Watch, visit Jihad Watch and so on. You can share those articles. If you're on Twitter, share retweet his tweets and so on. As far as things you would actually buy, definitely some of his books you definitely need. You need a copy of the Critical Quran. You need a copy of the History of Jihad. Given the situation, you need the Palestinian Delusion. So those are must-haves. They should be in all of your libraries. And then, of course, if you can, you definitely want to sign up on Patreon. So you got the link right there.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you all for being here. A lot more jihad. Watch out. Keep your head down, but don't let them intimidate you either. And for the next week, we can hope there won't be any jihad, but if there is, then God willing, we'll be back right at this space next week. Until then, pray, hope, don't worry.